from Mr. Stevens. And as we prepared for tonight's meeting, we had access to those. So they are here, though, to answer any questions that you may have as we go. The goal is that we're able to ask them all the questions that we have so that they don't have to return on another night. So that's our goal. And then as we go through each of these different items, this is a time where we start actually taking action steps so that as we go through each line item, if there is a line item amount that the mayor is proposing that you would like to see changed, then at that point you'll make a motion, it'll be seconded, and we'll have discussion. So we want to be efficient, and we want to take some forward steps in actually going through item by item on each of the line items. So with that, we'll get started. The first item is building safety, zoning, and planning. So building safety and zoning is on page 18 of your packet. So Mr. Zerbies is here, and he is available to answer questions, but I just ask everyone to turn to page 18. And then if you have questions that you ask them, or if you have any motions you want to make, you make them. So I did have a question for the mayor. On line item, it's the third one down under building safety and zoning for the part-time wages. It looks like that amount was reduced to 52,000. That actually might be you, Mr. Stevens. Did you just make a more realistic change to that, or?
Yes, based on the current year's totals assumption.
Okay. And then the rest of it is pretty much dues, fees, and subscriptions having to do with, the general office. That for a capital outlay, there's a request for $3,630, and I think, Mr. Zerbies, that's for 3 computers.
Yes, that may not be needed. We didn't hear from IT in time, but we're maybe able to cover those out of this year's budget.
Oh, nice.
So we may not need that. If I could, I'd like to go back to that the part-time salaries line where the reduction was there.
Mhm.
The 52,000 is basically the same as what's in the current year's budget, and that wouldn't even cover the any raises or step increases that anyone would get during that year. The original proposal was to add 4 hours to the commercial electrical inspector. He only has 4 hours a week now. We wanted to take him up to 8. We have a lot of commercial projects, Lumen Terrace and others that will need additional hours for that. And then the rest of it was for to add 4 hours to the code enforcement side of things. So that was the reason for those increases. Ideally, if we don't have that increase, probably be here this time next year asking for funds because we will probably run out at that time. So that's just a little clarification there.
Mr. Zerbis, you said for the new apartment complex too would require more electrical.
Yes, so right now the commercial plumbing inspector has 8 hours. The commercial electrical only has 4 hours a week. It's really a best guess as to how many hours they'll need, but it certainly is going to need more than 4 hours a week for commercial electrical. There are certain papers this year that the inspector put in 30 to 40 hours, and he's only budgeted for 4. So it probably will go over next year if we don't have some increase in that area.
And for this year, for the funds that might be available for computers, is that from a capital outlay budget that you have, or where would that money come from?
Supplies and expenses. We'll take it out of there this year. We'll be getting it pretty close to 0, but I think we'll be okay till the end of the year.
I see when this was created in June, it was 2,800. Okay.
So I know we hit it a minute or two ago, but I'm still confused by the decrease in the part-time allocation on that line, because that does take us back down to 2025.
Mhm.
We said that the expected amount of use on that is definitely going to drive us to closer to the request amount in the other column.
So that would be Mr. Stevens.
I did an analysis of the 12-month rolling number and feel comfortable with the 51,122, which does take into consideration the most recent 9 months and the prior 3 months. And also, yes, I would say I could see a trend upward, but I'm comfortable with the 52.
So along
Alderperson
that-
Davis?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Mr. Berg.
No, I just wanted to ask on that same topic of part-time hours that you've and dollars you've got allocated there. I'm getting a lot of comment on code enforcement as being an area of emphasis that we're not giving enough attention to. Tell me on Del Zwig, what are the hours that he currently has if he is obviously still here with us, and how does that number that we have for Del Zwig contribute toward that dollars that you have of the
Well, currently we have,
52,000?
currently we have 16 hours total for code enforcement a week. That right now that is split between Dell and actually our plumbing inspector, commercial plumbing inspector does the other 8 hours. And so that's how it's being handled right now. Because Dell only has 8 hours to give us at this point. He's out on a medical leave right now, which is actually helping some of the numbers because obviously he's not drawing from the part-time salaries. But the request was to bump that up to a full 20 hours a week in anticipation that at some point Dell and or the plumbing inspector no longer want to do this. That would be more attractive to advertise a 20-hour a week position versus an 8 or a 16-hour position.
Yeah.
So that was part of the equation there.
I would favor that. And I know it's additional dollars, but I'd like to see some additional dollars in the area of code enforcement because of everything I see within our city as far as needing an emphasis on that more than we're currently doing.
I found my numbers. 2024, as you see on this sheet, is 37,342 actual. 2025 budget, you can see, is 52,000. The most recent 12 months actual was 48,400. And my annualization of the 2025 based on January through September is 49,884.
All right, I can say that I'm comfortable with the 52,000, and if there were, for some reason, a need to come back next year, then we would tackle it next year. Again, we're in a tough budget year, and so my goal here is to find places that we can cut. Yep, Mr. Lampy.
I think I'm actually gonna go the opposite way. I do like the intent of advertising that we're able to lean into code enforcement, especially more in the upcoming year and demonstrate that with a dollar figure. So I would be interested in closing some, if not all, the difference between the request and what's listed here as the carryover from this year.
Would you be interested in taking the capital outlay budget item and adding that up to the part-time and zeroing out the capital outlay? Mr. Zerby says there's possibly money this year for those computers in this year's budget.
I don't know. What's the dollar figure that would actually make an applicable difference in code enforcement?
In code enforcement, it's really it's not a huge increase. It's only a 4-hour week increase is what this includes right now. So
So 33 times 4 times 52.
I did an extrapolation based on just the most recent 2 pay periods because those are an increase, and that it'd be an annualized amount of about 56,000.
So to answer Alder Davis's question, yeah, that's about the right amount.
So I don't know, did you have any comments, Mr. Smith? I was going to make a motion.
I don't have any comments to make, other than the fact that, number one, I echo what you said, which is, I know what the broader budget picture is, and I'm here to look for areas where we can cut. Number two, I believe that it is especially fortunate that we have somebody who is as analytically sophisticated and has worked as hard as our finance director has. And if he's comfortable with 52, I am comfortable with 52.
The 52 or 56, I would, the 56, I would say is helping to respond to Brian's belief that he needs to have an increase in some of those things. So I'm fine with the 52, but I would also say that the 56 is within the ballpark. I would not go with the 66,879.
So then I'll make a motion to reduce 01524160 by 3,630. So that becomes 0. And then to add 3,630 to the part-time wages there. So what would that be? 55,630?
I would second that.
Any further discussion on that? All right, with that, we can take a vote. I will vote aye. Mr. Lampe,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Berg,
Aye.
and then I believe you could vote, right? No, you can't vote at all? Okay. So that then passes unanimously. Were there any other items under building safety and zoning that you all wanted to discuss, or would you like to move on to planning and development, which is on page 20?
I'm sure this has a very simple answer, but all the way through are references to AMSO allocation. And I'm not sure what that means.
Mr. Stevens, he can explain it.
When I first started here, there was on our payroll a split of wages for any of the individuals that worked in the administrative offices, but were charged to various funds. So, for instance, I'll take my own position. The finance director was charged an allocation in Fund 1, and then some in the water department, and then some in the wastewater, and so on. And so instead of doing a split of the individuals, because every person then in finance, for instance, every individual was also allocated all over the place in the funds and whatnot, I brought to the city a different approach that I used at Rock County, and that was this concept of AMSO, an acronym that talks about the administrative and management fees that we charge across the board by department instead of by position. So instead of having finance director and clerk and deputy treasurer, and the list goes on, we have finance. Instead of having the mayor and having his wages split all over the place, we have the mayor's office. Same with attorney. Instead of having Ally in one allocation and Sandy, the same allocations all over the place, and Brandy all over the place, we have attorney's office. So we're collectively adding the compiled total of each of those administrative offices, and instead of doing it one by one, doing it by department. So whenever you see AMSO, that's what it's talking about. In the Fund 1, you'll see AMSO allocations showing up as negative numbers. So what we're saying is that this is the collective total. And when it says DPW, there's an admin AMSO and a DPW, Department of Public Works AMSO. And so this is the amount that we are distributing to other funds collectively for all of the building safety and zoning. If I were to add up all of the wages and compensation for the full-time people in that department, then we are saying there's X percent that is charged to water and wastewater and so on. That's what this is. And so when you see the negatives in Fund 1, then there is an associated positive in a different fund allocation somewhere else. All of the AMSOs in Fund 1 equal 100% of all of the AMSO distributions in varied other funds that make up water, wastewater, library gets an allocation, stormwater, solid waste.
Okay. Um, could you tell me what that acronym stands for?
Administrative management, something, something. It'll come to me.
Well, I get the concept at least, so when I hear the term or read it repeatedly in here, I'll have a much better idea of what we're talking about. Thank you.
All right. If there's nothing else to discuss under building safety and zoning, the next item is planning and development, and it's on page 20. And there are just 3 line items there. Contract planning services, township boundary adjustment, and updated comprehensive plan. And it looks like those numbers have stayed stable from 25 to 26. So I invite any questions at this time, and if there aren't any, you can just let me know that as well. All right. There's no questions then
Person,
on, oh, go ahead, Mr. Berg.
Yeah, Alderperson Davis, again, I'm not wanting to be critical of these numbers, but again, we have development that appears to be in the works for next year that's going to require some type of planning and oversight that typically Vanderwall Associates is actively involved with. We've got a mayor that we want to give him as much support as we can on all the areas of where he needs that type of expertise to help him in his decision making. And I'm just on the side of wanting to whether we have to add additional dollars, there has to be a subtraction somewhere else to make that offset. But I'm asking our mayor again if he feels comfortable with the ability to deal with all the issues that confront him in his position, knowing that we've got activity that's going to require expertise on the part of people like this in Vanderwall primarily. Just give a reassurance of how you feel you can deal with these issues with the dollars that are allocated there today. You feel okay with that?
Adrian?
We're on page 20. It's just planning and development. So it's contract planning services. Is that Vanderwald?
Part of it is,
Yeah.
5,000 of it is.
And so it's not even, okay. And then update comprehensive plan, that's just ongoing updating.
Yeah, that's anything the plan commission wants to do. It's just a little money there if they want.
So we do want to stay to the agenda item. So are you comfortable with those numbers? I'm assuming you are because you have endorsed them in your mayor column.
Yeah.
I am, and to Mr. Berg, I am having a meeting with Sonia soon too. But yeah, the numbers there, I'm comfortable with, Mr. Berg.
All right.
As a reminder, this isn't the only place where planning dollars are spent. For instance, anything that is in TID 9 is charged to TID 9. And also, not all Vanderwall dollars are included in Fund 1. Back to Mr. Smith's, AMSO is administrative management, support, and overhead.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions about planning and development, I believe Mr. Stevens said that the department heads would have an opportunity at this point to discuss any of their capital projects that are included in Fund 5. So you're going to have to probably remind us, I think there was a car allocation.
Yes,
Is that the only one?
and a carryover for the zoning ordinance update from this year. It's a 2-year project, so part of that money.
Okay, and do you all currently have a vehicle for inspections?
Yes, we have 2 of them.
And I'm not
This
seeing
would be
it.
on page 59,
Yes, 15.
halfway down the page. 0552 4170.
And so the 45,000 is carryover, so that's already been approved. Just for our sake, do we ever unapprove items that have been approved, just so that we know,
I would,
carryover items?
you would have to keep it maintained in the same kind of spending.
That's right.
So building safety zoning has to stay with building safety zoning.
Okay. Okay, so at this time, are there any questions about Mr. Zerbe's request for a vehicle for inspections for $35,000? And again, this is on 59, page 59. Yep, Mr. Limpy.
As I try to go through our other sheet regarding capital improvements, and this is the one with all the blue lines and the
Mhm.
summaries from previous year. That 35 looks like we're pulling up what we had looked at for 27 or 28, where we were replacing either the pickup or the Escape. Am I in the right place for this?
Look to, on the far left, are you looking at a 52-41 number on the far left column?
So he's kind of looking at the 5-year
Yeah.
Yeah.
plan. Are those your vehicles? What are they again, Mr. Limpy?
Yeah, because he doesn't have a pickup.
No, we don't have a pickup.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're looking, parks or streets might have been asking for.
So that does bring up a good question. Is this even on the 5-year plan? This $35,000 request?
Yeah.
It is.
Which one is it on the 5-year plan then? Okay, above the 90. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Page 4.
Mr. Berg, do you have any questions?
No.
Yep, Mr. Lampy.
I do want to go back to that 45 or that 90, where that was notated as a 90 that carried over. Are we going to have to find the money for that this year, or do we really have 45 available to us coming?
45 is the estimated remainder
Yeah.
that would be the carryover. The amount that originally was borrowed
We
was
already borrowed.
90,
Correct.
but then
So
we
it's
would
already
have
been funded.
spent 45 in the current year.
Yep, okay. Trying to get my notations between the two documents figured out. Thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions for Mr. Zerbe's, I think,
Could I ask a question?
who is that? Mr. Arnett?
Yeah.
Yes?
So on this vehicle, could I have clarification of its use on a daily basis?
As far as like the hours it's used, or?
Just what it's going to be used for. Is it just driving around town, not hauling anything, or just?
Yeah,
I
it's just used
understand.
around town to take the inspector to various inspections.
So with that in mind, the city has a very large fleet. Is there really not another vehicle available in another department that could be transferred over? That's my question.
Well, you currently have one.
Yeah, we have two vehicles, and on the days that the other inspector is in the office or the code enforcement officer is in the office, they're both utilized.
Question still remains. Got a lot of vehicles.
Yeah.
And a number of them acquired in recent years. So we're not talking about something that's 10 or 15 years old.
And I just also want to remind us that our day to take action on the capital projects, Fund 5, is Thursday. So right now, we're just getting information from the department heads. Okay, if there are no other questions for Mr. Zerbe's, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. And then we'll move on to letter H. Budget proposal discussion. This is the big one, general government and common council, mayor, municipal court, attorney, media services, communication, information tech, human resources, employee benefits, finance, elections, assessor, audit, property liability insurance, public services, enterprises. And we will try to take them in that order because I believe it's deliberate. So that means that we'll have to jump around just a little bit. But let's turn to general government then. And that's page 6 in our notebooks. And the first thing to look at is common council. There's not a whole lot there to chip away at because it's mostly salaries. And then I did ask Mr. Stevens about the supplies. Did I ask you, about, let's see, the $25,000 number, official publications, and you said that's all the noticing we have to do and that the cost of that is going up. Are there any questions for this section? Yes, Mr. Smith.
Well, here's the big one. Under the common council, there is a category called travel and constituent service. There actually was, I don't know, I guess it was $450 in there at one point in time, which was $50 per council member. And I think that $450 was virtually always returned to the general fund. I don't know of anybody that used it. And I'm pretty impressed that during this period of raging inflation that we have maintained $10.11 per alderperson for constituent service. I'm kind of being facetious, but I mean, we receive a salary. That salary is for constituent service. I don't know if it costs money or whatever. I'm trying to think. I used to buy some different walk lists and ways to stay in touch and always paid for them out of my own pocket. And if I drive around, I put the gas in my car. And I know that over the course of the next several days, I'm going to be voting to make some cuts. And just for the purpose of showing good faith, I would just like to suggest that we surrender this boondoggle and eliminate that $100 account and actually zero it out, because I seriously doubt it's even going to be used. And I guess I would just make a motion that we eliminate the $100 for city council travel and constituent service.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
Any further discussion?
There any statutory reason we have that?
All right. Any other, Mr. Berg, any discussion? Being none,
Let me
let's
ask,
take. Oh,
yeah, one question actually, Alderperson Davis.
sure.
When council members are new and they get on the council and they need to ideally go to regional meetings to learn some of the duties of being an elected official, those things are valuable to a new alderperson. And I know at one time I was of that type, and I benefited from going to regional type of meetings along that line. So I'm asking Mark, do those expenses that I just described, do they fit within that category that we're talking about now?
Yes, it would make sense that any of those kinds of charges would hit the 0151 series of numbers.
But I would also say that we have a membership with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, is that correct? And that's out of a different line item. And they offer so many different options, online, virtual, for training. which
Yep,
is
And that's
something
what
that I
the
appreciate.
Dues, fees and subscriptions, line dash 22.
Yep. So I took advantage of that. Online virtual is much more convenient. All right. Being no other discussion, let's take a vote. All in favor of taking this down to 0, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Any further items under common council? Yes.
Just for that item, do we have to specify that that gets dropped into contingency?
And Mr. Stevens?
It will out of default.
Okay, so no.
All right, so we're just,
It adds to contingency.
Right.
Is
Or
there-
it wouldn't actually have to, because it also helps your bottom line.
yeah,
So you
What's
don't
the
have to
current-
have it influence an increase of contingency. By not putting it against contingency, it helps reduce the net loss that would impact your fund balance by a whopping 100.
Okay, so we should specify what we're affecting by this if we intend to do
Yeah,
contingency. or
if you
fund balance.
intend to do something with contingency, say so.
There's an offer here, I think, for a friendly,
oh,
what was your intent?
What's that?
What was your intent to reduce?
expenditures?
Reduce expenditure and the hit on the fund balance, or is your intent to increase contingency?
Well, no, I was not intending to increase the contingency. I was just interested in making this cut, and I'm keeping a T diagram of cuts and additions, and we're gonna come to a bottom line number that's gonna be one way or the other. And as far as I'm concerned, we just contributed $100 to some future flexibility.
All right. So if there's nothing else in common council, let's move on then to the next item, which is mayor. So I do want to take these in order that they're on the agenda. So we're actually going to flip to page 7. And there we have the mayor's items. Are there any questions? Page 7. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, we have two items here that are economic development related. Now, I guess my recollection is that those are contractual obligations that we have
That's-
under these two line items here.
For Jefferson County Economic Development, that's a contract.
Yeah. And the economic development contribution, what is that
That's
for?
That's the amount that is contributed to, what fund is that?
60.
60 for the, it is basically Mason Becker. We would apply it to him. So it gets transferred to Fund 60. It's the contribution from the city to that fund.
Which combines with contributions from other entities like the RDA and so forth.
Whatever's in there, yeah.
Okay. And we had discussed at one point in time, trying to look at my notes to see what we were anticipating, but we were talking about the Main Street program and a contract that we were going to be working on. Now, this is simply giving us the financial basis for moving forward, at least in 26, in some type of a contract of whatever duration, I don't know. But I know that we were talking about something more than 30,000, and I believe we as a committee had voted on making some addition. I can't remember what the particular,
As I recall, we
Okay.
voted to explore the possibility of giving them more. It wasn't a firm commitment.
it wasn't a firm commitment and it wasn't a specific amount. And I can't remember what the particular word
Yeah.
was, but I think it was some
Meaningful.
reasonable increase or something of that type. And right now it zero increase. So it's not consistent with the position that we had taken on an earlier vote, which was a specific vote.
Alderperson Davis?
Yes?
Yeah, just to comment, Alderperson Smith is right again on that topic because it was, I think, his general statement of a meaningful increase that he felt, we could, be in favor of. And he didn't quantify the amount, but I think the phrase seemed to be a meaningful, type of increase that would, address the needs of that program. I think it's obviously our call on the amount,
Yeah.
but it was not to be a zero increase.
I do remember that it was qualified. It was not, it was a more exploration because I voted to support Mr. Smith's motion at that time. And I would not have voted to support a definite increase because we knew at that time the budget constraints that we were going to be under.
Well, I guess I'll just make the following point. The expiring contract is a 5-year contract, which was not adjusted over that period of time. So that was for $30,000. And if that was unadjusted for inflation over 5 years, and we move even forward with a 1-year contract that is $30,000, that would be 6 years. And I probably shouldn't say this because I'm not sure of it, but I believe that there were a period of years before that 5-year contract was entered into, during which there also was not any adjustment for inflation. So this leaves us in a position where we have no opportunity to increase the Main Street program budget above what it was for the 5-year contract that's expiring. I'm just pointing this out, and I think that that is not where I thought we were going.
Mr. Lampy.
I'm interested in looking at the Main Street increase as well. I do want to do that in conjunction with the renegotiated agreement with them. I don't know what the best way is proceed from a budget perspective on that would be. I would be open to that negotiation happening as we're coming up on refreshing that agreement.
So if there is an interest, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. First, there is a contingency fund of $100,000, and so money could be taken from that contingency fund. So you got a debit and then an increase. But also, we are already at a 3.8% increase to the general levy. And so, once again, these are difficult decisions, but my focus is not on increasing at this point.
Alderperson Davis, may I speak for just briefly?
Go ahead.
So first, just a clarification, I'm looking at the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting of August 11th. And for those interested in the exact wording of that motion, it was to encourage a meaningful increase for the Main Street community in the mayor's budget.
Thank you.
Exact wording, to encourage. I would like to, and the second thing is I'd like to note that the mayor has made some comments previously about looking at ways to directly help the downtown businesses, particularly with the street reconstruction coming up and the costs that will be borne by those buildings and the impacts that we've had made on those businesses. And I believe that he had that in mind essentially as an alternative to increasing the allocation to the Main Street program. So instead, what should we be doing to be putting money directly toward those businesses and building owners in mind of that very looming project?
Mayor, did you have any
Thank you.
comments to that?
That was to take money from utilities, potentially be able to help get larger water pipes for sprinkler systems, things like that. We can allocate money in the next couple of years for any businesses that were interested in applying for that. So that was another way to give them some more money to use specifically for the businesses.
Yes, Mr. Limpy.
I do want to reaffirm that the Main Street program is essentially the voice for the downtown business community in most cases. So there's, again, I'm looking really to the program and the director to provide some of the specific pieces, and I would like to see some other things out of that agreement. I would like to be able to essentially incentivize moving forward with a new agreement with some sort of a monetary amount at the end of that process. But I think part of that agreement is delivering specific services and providing, in some cases, just as it has provided an extremely valuable service in terms of collecting and organizing some of the thoughts coming forward from a very diverse business community downtown. I think that there is some role that we as a city would actually benefit from if that was communicated in an agreement, but I will still like to have some degree of monetary flexibility to actually develop that. And I also do not want to necessarily put a specific amount on the table at this point, but I want to talk about it.
Thing that we can do is just star this and then revisit it at a later date, maybe when we know better where the contingency money is. Is everybody in favor of that? Just kind of putting a tag by it and revisiting it later? Okay, then are there any other comments?
I would favor.
You're in favor of that?
I would favor that because I think each person that making comments so far, including Alderperson Lampy, the issues of that Main Street area and the businesses that are residing there, they've dealt with enough adversity between the bridge and the other things that are coming forward. They need whatever dollars are marketing and promoting and incentivizing them to do well and to commit and retain their businesses during these difficult times. The dollar amount is probably an arbitrary amount that we would pick, but I do think it's real important that we give it a high priority and that we give some additional dollars. Again, that's up for some discussion. I'm fine with the asterisk for now to make that a priority and to bring it back for more discussion. But the need is there. We know that Main Street and the businesses that reside in the downtown area are vitally important to the appearance and the image that we want to portray as far as our city. And we, through marketing, promoting, and supporting events that are downtown, we can do that. And our contribution, is very important.
Okay. The only other item on here, I think that there was point of discussion was the economic development contribution, which was reduced. I think we've discussed that pretty thoroughly previously. Are there any questions about that reduction? We do need to keep an eye on the clock a little bit here, and we want to make some forward progress. Okay. Yes?
Not to spend any funds right now, just to remind everybody that there is 12,771 to spend yet and stay under ERP. So there are, if you're looking to put money in any place, you still have $12,771. You can do that.
Okay. That does increase expenditures, though. Yes. Yes.
What is that? In other words, use that amount to,
For any amount, if someone's looking for a little bit of money,
Yeah.
we can still spend $12,771. So you can add that expense and still stay within ERP.
I think my view, having raised this issue and being prepared.
Can you use your mic a little bit more? Thank you.
Well, it's on, but yeah. I think we're probably not at a point where adding a specific amount to the $30,000 would be the best approach. I think what Jonathan has mentioned is a very real possibility, which is to look at the expansion of the different services and such being performed by the Main Street program, which will inform us to what would be maybe a more appropriate and more knowledgeable amount of money. Also, if we were to add specifically now, it would kind of put us in the position where we've already negotiated with ourselves for a contract that isn't completed, and I don't think that's respectful to the other side. And we do have a contingent account if that is something that is the needful area from which we're going to derive funding. So anyway, I'm completely fine leaving it at 30,000 now, but I just wanted to go on record suggesting that there is additional work that needs to be done in relationship to this agreement. I like the idea of looking at expanded areas of programming, performance, et cetera, and then recognizing that areas of funding can be available through consolidating from other accounts or the contingent account. But I do think we need to anticipate coming back and looking at this.
Okay. Are there any other discussion on this area for the mayor section? Okay, if there's no other discussion, let's go on to the next one then, which is the municipal court, which is back a page. That's on page 6, so you're going to flip back. Are there any questions or concerns under municipal court? Okay,
No.
I don't hear any questions, so that means we can move on. Let's go to the attorney, which is flipping ahead to page 10. Questions for this one? Yes?
This is one where we keep looking at the assistant city attorney and putting that back. This one was requested again for 2026 and withdrawn. Did we talk about this in the context of the 12 positions we were looking at many months ago?
All those positions were just left to be possibly to fill. The motion, I believe, by Mr. Smith was to leave them all at the time, so they were all in the budget and just listed as a 0, except for 4 of them that we did find room to fill, or funds to fill. Mr. Chesrod even asked me to take it off, and I said, "I'll put it on, at least I think it was a request," so I told other department heads too. So some of those positions that were brought in front of you were kind of told they were expecting it not to be filled. This is one of them.
Okay. I think one of the things that I've had in mind as we've looked at this in past years is try to compare this to essentially those additional legal expenses that we have in -16. And I'm seeing our additional legal expenses, we did pretty well in 2025. If I'm reading that right. Are there other numbers that we have to take into account as to what else we'd essentially save with an assistant city attorney?
My understanding is that the additional legal expenses we budget for things like conflict of interest, things that I mean, I have professional ethics. If I don't have the capacity to handle a matter, I'm going to tell the city that, and then we would hire out for that. We could not completely eliminate that budget with something like an assistant city attorney because those conflicts are always going to be there and you have to account for them. My understanding of what the prior attorney was looking for is some assistance with an assistant city attorney to help with matters like prosecution, so that at any time my position is called upon to handle HR related things and all of the legal issues that go along with that, that's where we can better split those fees.
All right, any other questions for this one?
No.
No, no from Mr. Berg, no from you, Mr. Smith? Let's move on then to media services communication, and I believe that's on page 12. We did receive an email today with a follow-up from the department head requesting us to reinstate some of the cuts that were put in there or placed in there by the mayor. I would note that on a 0% increase year, I know it's relative because their spending for supplies and such is fairly small, but their requests were at a 49% increase. And so I'm in support of the mayor's reductions and okay. Oh, thank you. Lisa's online.
Hello, yes.
Okay, good to know. And if we have questions, does anybody have questions for Lisa?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Smith.
I'm not really familiar with how the various salaries are allocated within this area. But what does strike me as a substantial increase is the 25 adopted budget was 121,000 plus. And now the request and the recommended approval amount is 131,000. And I'm wondering, what is the $10,000 increase being used for?
Any of the wage counts that you'll see throughout the 26 request list would be incorporating the McGrath pay table modifications. So they're not consistent from one page to another. It basically, when you see a larger amount like this, that's probably an indication that this person's market pay was considerably less than what the market comparables were. And in this case, it's more than one person that hits that account.
Yep, Mr. Lampy.
So one of the other numbers I'm somewhat cognizant of as we look through this budget has always been the revenue fund. That's 01 44 12 15. That's the cable TV franchise fee, which has been dipping down for a couple of years. I think when I first looked at it, it was closer to 250. It came in, we budgeted for 202 this past year. So one of the things that was true about that fund as it compared to, let's say, the Media and Communications Department is, if you compare those two numbers, that has been in the past essentially a net add to the bottom line. If you took a look at all the cable TV fees, and that essentially paid for our entire Media and Communications Department and then some. We're getting pretty close with this budget, and I think if you did not have the AMSO allocation added this year, this would be the first year that I think the Media and Communications Department was not entirely paid for by the cable TV fees. So we're underneath that. If you look at the 202 versus the 180, the AMSO allocation essentially brings that back to Fund 1. But I am a little nervous that we've gotten that close that fast, and worry that we're essentially taking this department away from, this is comfortably paid for by cable TV fees, and now we are essentially looking at this as a Fund 1. We've essentially zeroed out the contribution to the bottom line, or we're getting very close to it.
Oh, that's a good observation.
I bring up a point. This is Lisa.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so a few years ago, there were definite percentage cuts to the franchise fees, and that is part of the reason why you're seeing them go down so fast. I believe they were at 5 and now they're at 3.5 or maybe even 3. The state does make up for that payment, at least in part, by providing video service provider aid. That, and you'll have to excuse me, I don't know what page it's on for you, but it's 01-42-21-14. So that should also be considered.
I'm sorry, could you say that one again, please, Lisa?
It's the name of it is Video Service Provider Aid, and
Page
the account number. Oh, sorry, Mark.
Page 1.
Page 1, yeah.
Okay, so that's the extra 51,958
Mhm.
and 042-21-14. Okay. So the total really is 254, if you look at those two funds.
Lisa, do you have any Fund 5 capital improvement requests?
I do not this year.
Well, there's one.
Yes, you do. You
there's
have
one in
something on
there
the list.
For digital data preservation and storage
Oh,
for $10,000.
oh, excuse me. I did not realize that that made it to the list. That is, I can tell you what that is. That is our server that holds all of our video files on it. We're going back to about 2016, if not a little bit farther there. And we're getting concerned because that is aging out.
Are there any other questions for Lisa or any other questions about the amounts that are here?
Well, since we're on the capital budget thing, is this $10,000 necessary for 2026? What's the imperative for getting the server replaced from 2020?
The server, like I said, the server is aging. We are using up space pretty fast. Right now, everything we do is recorded in 4K, so that takes up quite a bit more data than just, regular high def or maybe even standard def we have on there back, 10 years or more. We could possibly stretch that out another year. We would start, it's shown no signs of failing, but the age does make me nervous.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Berg, Mr. Smith?
No.
No, no? None at
Alderperson
this time?
Davis, I have a question if I may.
Okay.
Regarding the AMSO allocation, I'd like to understand what has changed about this area that now it is appropriate for an AMSO allocation, and a pretty substantial one as a percentage, when it was apparently not appropriate in the previous years.
Mark, would you like to take that one first, or would you like me to handle that? Comfortable either way.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Sure. Well, it's not that it had been inappropriate in the past. Media Productions, as it stands now, is a city department serving all other city departments to help communicate our work to the public and to stakeholders. So I think that in the past, this department was born out of cable access. That's why we run off of our video service provider fees. And this is just a change to better reflect what we're currently doing.
So no change, but suddenly now it's appropriate. Okay. All right. I hear what you're saying.
Thank you.
To add to that, if we think about the city connection, one of the primary reasons for the content of that city connection are some of the requirements that PSC has upon us to advertise what our water-related things do as it relates to the content of the water and the testing and all of those things. And the city connection is 100% the work of Lisa and her staff. But the utility accounts have not paid for any of her time when it comes to the creation of the city connection, which a lot of it has to do with some of those other departments. The media is not allocating anything to the library in the AMSO. It's the other 4 utilities: storm, water, wastewater, and solid.
But just to follow up a question on there, the cost of printing and distributing the city connection is not included in this particular account area. Is that correct?
Correct. Those are already allocated to the funds.
And the city connection has been going on for, well, for as long as I've been on council previously, so at least 15 years.
Yep.
But suddenly this year, we feel a need to do this. All right, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions for Lisa, Lisa, thank you for your
Let me
time.
understand a little, I'm
Oh.
sorry again if I'm interrupting.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I think Mark just made a little bit of the case for the fact that the person here, or this program actually is assisting in a very meaningful way with putting together the city connection, in which we all benefit from. And if if the time involved on the part of Lisa and others are actually contributing to that document being the way it is, then why isn't there a partial allocation of her salary from those utilities?
Mayor, do you want to take it?
There's also things she puts on social media, the website and Facebook. So it was just it's 15% of her salary, of the staff salary. 15% is what was allocated. The only other change that happened this year was there are 3 mechanics at the street department. And originally 1 was on utilities and 2 out of Fund 1. And there's been a large amount of work being done on the both the trash and recycling trucks. So Stacy and Andrew had both made a determination that they could probably move a second one to being on the utilities as well. So that's, that second mechanic and the 50% out of media are the only changes to AMSO this year. But to answer your question, Mr. Burgess, other things are going on social media, not just the city connection. It probably could have been deemed that money could have gone to AMSO previous years, maybe a little bit, but 15% was what was determined this year.
All right. If there's no other questions then for this or any action that anyone wants to suggest, then we can move on to information technology, which is on page 13. So I do have a thought on this one. We have an addition of an IT technician to begin in July for 52,891. And then there's an IT intern for 12,358. So when you are analyzing these budgets, I'm sure you all are doing this too, you start to think globally and moving money from one area to the other. So let me lay out my case here. We haven't quite gotten to it, but the elections, they have to get new election machines this year. And instead of having that in capital outlay, we've moved it to Fund 5. It's in the neighborhood of $21,000. So in my mind, I'm not relishing the idea of borrowing money and paying interest on the purchase of those election equipment. I would rather that we purchase that through general fund. So that's $21,000. So I have that in my mind. And so here's a thought that I want to throw out to you all. I'm interested in exploring the possibility of not hiring the assistant IT technician this year, which wouldn't happen until July anyway, for 52,000, and instead increasing the amount of the IT intern to roughly 25,000. Here's my thought. If you have an IT intern that starts in January and maybe has partial hours, maybe ramps up in the summer for even full-time hours, and then in the fall, depending on their schedule and their schooling, ramps it down again, I think that you can get some really diligent and effective hands-on deck to help our IT director, and you can get it immediately beginning in January, and you can have an effective IT intern really getting some jobs done. Just think about in the summer when you have an IT and the amount of, they can ramp up to get projects done. We would save about $25,000 by doing that. And in my mind, I would like to see that allocated then to the election equipment that we need to purchase and reallocate that to Fund 1 capital outlay under election. Okay, that's my proposal. Not necessarily a motion. I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
I had looked at the substantial amount of increased personnel cost here. When the IT intern was presented off budget previously, I did not support that. That moved forward with the majority support here, and my thought was, and I didn't have any kind of a combination approach overlapping with the election equipment or anything else, but simply saying, in essence, there was a decision made for that IT intern, which has been a decision that's been made, and I'm prepared to support that now. But I also feel that the IT technician, which is a substantial amount of money, is something that at a minimum should not be added to our employment this year. So I'm trying to think how we can, I'm not looking at this as part of a package arrangement. There may be expenses that we can move around using some of this money. Undoubtedly, that'll be the case somewhere through the course of this budget. I guess my interest is in just pursuing a simple approach to this, which is to say, we are moving forward with the intern position. It may or may not be appropriate to increase that somewhat. But regardless how we approach any additional hours for the intern, anticipating that we would keep that position in the budget, I was planning to make the motion to eliminate the IT tech position completely from the budget. And at least in the short run, save the almost $53,000. We can discuss whether an offset of added hours for the intern would be appropriate. But we have to find, through this budget, some major savings, because we are looking at a totally unacceptable tax rate increase. And I also believe we're looking at using too much fund balance, but that's another issue, and there are issues which we'll look at on other evenings. But so I don't know. I think it might be the simplest thing, just to gauge the level of support, to make a simple motion at this point in time to delete the IT tech completely from the budget, and then, depending on that result, move on to other issues, or when we come to the
Sure.
elections issue, look at that separately.
Well, you know, I'm interested in that. Mr. Lampy, we're gauging support for eliminating the IT tech.
Sure, and I'm going to provide the case really for the opposite direction here. We've heard from a series of IT folks dedicated with the city who have essentially quit one after another because of burnout, because of too high of a workload. And I have been in favor of some additional allocations here of full-time support, so that there's continuity if and or when our main full-timer quits again. Or in the case of actually having an ability to catch up on some of the large workload projects. As we've gone through a couple of these discussions, one of the things that I advocated and thought we had consensus here for at the Finance Council was actually to put together a subcommittee essentially that would look at IT needs and be able to gauge what's appropriate for the upcoming year. What is the plan coming up here? I know we have an IT technician who's got an idea of what that would look like currently, but we still really never got to that step as to what should they be doing from an outside point of view. Minus that, I know that there's some very large projects coming up here from a desktop support piece, which is a very large portion of our city support. For example, there's a transition coming up to Windows 11, and there's an entirely new management console that's associated with managing that going forward. There's some large technology transitions that are expected, the industry is essentially expected to go through, especially if it's a Windows-based shop like we are, that'll either require some investment in salary for somebody who's on staff, or likely some additional investment in some of the other categories that we see down here related to third-party support. So in general, I want to see some backstop for the IT technician, because this is a position that has historically shown an amazing degree of turnover and a lack of continuity that's impacted a lot of our city services and their ability to go forward.
Mr. Berg?
Yeah, I favor the idea of deleting that position. I think we can look at next year and see if our housing actually does improve like we're we're actually hearing positive trends in that regard. If we have revenues, I think it's a discussion topic a year from now, and I appreciate the new man we got on board with doing the IT, and I think providing some help through interns is a way of, for now, providing some additional support. The subcommittee is a good idea on looking at how to address the needs within that department and program, but like Alderperson Smith has made the case for, we need to find examples where we can save some decent dollars to offset and to bring the overall levy down as low as we can.
Well, if it's appropriate, I would make a motion to delete the IT tech completely from the 26 budget.
I'll second it.
All right, is there any further discussion?
Just need to bring to your attention that in so doing, the AMSO allocation that I have in green also will be reduced because the 52,891 has a 20% allocation elsewhere. And then you can also eliminate the 575 telephone. So the reduction of the AMSO addition will be a subtraction of 10,578. So it's effectively not a full 52,891. It'll be the 52,891 minus 10,578.
Okay, well, I would be perfectly confident that those adjustments would be made and whatever that bottom line is, but it's the point of eliminating the position completely with all secondary implications that this motion is intended to bring for our discussion.
So we've got a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, let's take a vote. Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith, you want to vote?
As a point of clarification, are we looking at reducing fund balance again or contingency?
I'm interested, we're going to be looking at a number of things later on where I'm saying there's going to be pluses and minuses all through this process. And I'm just looking at this as a deletion from the budget completely, not sending it to some other place on any permanent or temporary basis, just a cut.
Fund one.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll take a vote. Mr. Smith? Aye. Here,
Excuse me.
we're voting. So do you want to vote aye?
I would vote aye, yes.
Mr. Berg?
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Mr. Lampy?
Nope.
All right, so that's 3 ayes, 1 nay. I would like to make a motion then for the IT intern total compensation. It's currently at 12,358. And I think I would like to add another 10,000 to that. Not 10, yeah, 10,000 to that to bring it to 22,358. The thinking then is you could get someone beginning in January and they can work for the full year. And you would have consistency of coming in and maybe work less hours during the spring when they're in classes, but ramp up in the summer to get some real projects done. So my motion is to add $10,000 to that line item for the IT intern.
I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Lampy?
I'm generally not in favor of leaning on interns for work. I've had probably more interns, IT interns that I can count over the years. There have been a few that have been able to execute projects on the regular, but you are really sort of rolling the dice. I've had as many that essentially take as much time to keeping up to speed as they've actually been able to contribute back to the program. So the intern environment, I think, is wonderful for an educational experience. It's not something that we want to lean into very heavily to get things done as an IT measure here at the city.
Any further discussion? All right, with that, we'll take a vote. Again, this is to add $10,000 to the IT intern, and we've got a first and a second, so I'll vote aye. Mr. Lampy,
No?
Mr. Smith,
No.
Mr. Berg?
Yes.
So we got a 2-2, so doesn't pass. All right.
I'm not sure what was just said.
It was 2-2, so it does not pass.
I guess I'd just ask a question. Does the mayor not have a participatory role in this?
That's correct. Under Rule 8 of under Rule 8 of our city council section of the ordinance, he's a non-voting member during budget deliberations.
Just as a point of clarification, if we look at the history of doing what we're doing during budget time, my recollection was that the mayor gave up his chair seat, but my memory of his involvement at finance was that he did. I thought he voted, but if you can prove me wrong, that's fine.
It's under section 114-7, Rule 8, which is subsection H. The mayor shall be chairperson of the Committee on Finance, except that during a budget deliberation, the mayor shall be a non-voting ex officio member of the Committee on Finance and shall designate a chairperson of the committee during budget deliberations.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments, action to take under information technology?
There are projects listed on page 59, capital improvements.
Oh, yes. Do we have the department head on with us?
I don't see Chris on. I can just relay that this list originated with Digicorp, which is now referred to as Win Technology. That's their new company name. They gave us a list, as they typically have done with different projects. Chris and I went through the list and tried to pare down some of the requests, basically providing prioritization from Chris on the things that he has sensed would be the most important on the list. And the VM host servers, we actually have 2 that run redundantly. So the 60 is reduced to 30 to replace 1 and not both of them, which he actually likes and prefers just to have different ages on these so that they're not all having to be replaced on the same cycle. Storage is what the SAN is, and then just reducing some of the overall list of switches. Those are piecemeal type things compared to some of the other pieces that you can't just cut a server down into smaller parts, but the switch replacements you can.
Okay, thank you.
The CIS server, just at the last, is the police department. That's their data configuration, storage of all of the things that they have to keep for evidence.
Yes.
Just to clarify on the switch replacements here, I think what I'm seeing here with the 31,500 that was brought forward, that just looks like there were some 2027 items that were tried to or suggested to bring forward, and we just sort of pushed them back a year. So the only one that I'm seeing on the capital projects one is the street department switch department, or street department switch is 2026. Is that what we're saying here? Okay.
Okay. All right, let's move on then. The next one is human resources. And someone has the page for that?
Page 9.
No.
Lisa apologizes. She had a 7 o'clock that she had to go to.
So I had a question on this one. I believe it's line 18, supplies and expenses. There's an $1,000 ad for fitness incentive increase for $1,000 addition, I believe. Do you know what that's about?
Yeah, I believe it's to get back any fitness classes people can put in for it. So to take some kind of a fitness class, it's $40 to get reimbursed for it. At least I had looked into the YMCA. I believe the school district does this for every $5 a organization pays into their membership. The Y contributes $2.50. She looked into that, but thought it might be too costly at this time, so looked for another way to promote fitness. So that money would only be spent if it go through. Everybody would have one shot at getting $30, $40 back. And if it went through the whole cycle, the employees, they could reapply for a second time.
So an employee would have an opportunity to apply for one $30 incentive?
I'm just using it as a number, yeah. Maybe there's something like there's an exercise class that's going for a week and it's $15, make it,
But it's just like one class.
right, yeah.
Hmm.
A one-time expense that you get back.
Okay, and then my next question is line item 20, computer supplies and software. And in the documentation that we received, I believe from Lisa, the amount was for 4245.
I also had 4908 in the memo.
But here it's 5968. So it's a considerable increase from what was requested in the documentation.
I'm actually seeing that as, so there's in the memo, there's $60 for the HR portal. So that's accounted for, well, let me back some numbers here off. If you go to 2025 and take $1,000 off the 4,000, you're back down to the 3185. So I saw this as $1,000 plus whatever this subscription, the applicant pro subscription was. Then to construct the number for 2026, it looks like she took the 4908, added 1,000, and then added another $60 for the HR portal. So I'm going to assume that there's an HR portal that costs like another $1,000 a year.
But would you agree that the amount she requested was in the 4,000 range in the documentation? I would have to pull it up to you.
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm looking just at the memo. The memo has most of the elements. Let me take a look at the Excel again. She's got 54. No, she has a request. She has the full amount for the request in here. Yes, she has 1,060 for the Civic HR module, which includes the $6 increase. And okay, so what I'm seeing in the Excel here is there's the 4417, which is the discounted price, which is different than the full price that's requested.
Hmm.
So I think we're probably gonna have to phone a friend here, Mark, like which number do you want?
And I would say, let me make sure that I interact with Lisa on this and just add it to next meeting.
Okay.
Come back to this account.
Because there's also, I may not have time to implement it in 2026. Need to search for other quotes. That doesn't give me a high degree of confidence that this is the year for that.
The rationale for that would be to try to find something cheaper because of the high increase of applicant pro.
Yeah.
And also, she started her look, she didn't come across anything that was any cheaper than applicant pro, but I kind of encouraged her to keep looking. And all, it's just that she filled the applicant pro price because we know what that one is.
Okay. So you're going to come back to us on
I
this?
will, yep.
All right, and then just want to throw out feelers on that $1,000 fitness incentive increase this year. Mr. Lampy?
In general, compared to the rest of our health budget, I think it's a money well spent if it actually encourages people to have those fitness programs, which generally show a correlation to better health insurance rates down the line.
Mr. Smith, are you fine with the $1,000 increase to the fitness incentive program? There's a, $1,000 increase to encourage them to use gyms.
I've been flipping pages here and now I've
Oh, you've lost us?
lost my.
We're on page 9. And then it's, under human resources, it's line item 18 that ends in 18, supplies and expenses. And there's just an $1,000 increase this year for the fitness incentive program. That sounds like people can get reimbursed for 1 or 2 classes in a year if they put their request in. I'll come back to you, Mr. Smith.
Oh.
Oh, go ahead.
The short answer to your question is no, I'm not, but I'm just wondering about I guess I was anticipating something like that would be under the employee benefits section instead of where it's currently located, but if the question is, do I think that $1,000 increase is justified for that purpose? The answer is no.
Mr. Berg, how are you weighing in on a $1,000
okay.
increase? You're okay with it?
I'm okay with that because in the end, those are the little things that are maybe perks or little benefits that you may not really appreciate. But as an employee, if you have those incentives and those types of benefits that are in their own way made available, I think the employees appreciate it. I think they get used, and I think they do actually provide an obvious benefit. So
Okay.
I'm going to always be on the side of encouraging fitness and health, and if $1,000 has any additional benefit on saving on insurance and other claims, I think there's a correlation you can prove.
Okay. So
Not
we're at
easy,
a,
but I'm in favor.
we're at a 2-2, so I think there's no sense in making a motion on that. Is there anything else under HR that you all want to address? All right. If not, then we're going to move on to employee benefits, which is
Page 14.
page 14. So if you flip over to page 14, we've got employee benefits or employee programs, I guess it is. If you have any questions about that?
I will offer that I'll have conversation with Lisa again on the employee benefits admin fees. We were hoping to change to a new supplemental insurance plan that would tie software to each other, and that would have some fees to it. That's not happening. We didn't get that all the way satisfied. So the line ends with 45 employee benefit admin fee. I believe we had added $1,000 additionally in that account to pay for some of the linkage expenses. It would be a great enhancement for HR, a department of very small number of FTE, but I think we're probably going to end up not seeing that happen and therefore can reduce that. But I'll put that on my list to ask Lisa.
Okay, and then I also did note that under employee appreciation, the department asked for 3,000 and the mayor granted 5,000 there for employee appreciation. Mayor, do you remember your decision making on that?
Yeah, in previous years, they had the award program for $10,000. Gave 20 employees a $500 gift, so I cut that and thought, instead of paying that 10,000, just add 2,000 to the employee appreciation. Usually there's a Christmas meal, and then I think we had one in June or July that was subs that all the departments go and eat, so I was thinking to add to it. I did have a local business in town that reached out to me and said they could offer someone with their food truck, so that was a thought, cutting 10, but then adding 2.
Okay, any other questions for this item?
No.
Yes, Mr. Lampy.
On leadership training, that got cut down to 0. Is there any correlation between any of our leadership training and our ability to better ward off any sort of employment issues?
That was newer, and there's one that was done in a local area, and some of the staff didn't think it was maybe worthwhile.
So the,
There's other ones that are free to do, so.
Okay.
okay, any other questions here? Yep.
I just want to echo Alder Smith's comment on the last one, that if we do have an offsetting employee program like the health benefit, that I'd like to see that represented down here in future years. I don't know that I want to chase it this year, but this does seem like the more appropriate place to see like a health incentive.
Instead of HR, you mean?
Correct.
I think it was HR, because HR person is one that is in charge of it, but we can,
They're also in charge of employee programs.
you're correct, Mr. Lampy.
Okay, so we're at about 2 hours. Would anybody be favorable for a 5-minute break? 5-minute break. Do we have to vote on that, or we just do it?
Are we leaving all the employee benefits unchanged? We call this.
Did anybody make a motion? I thought we were done, but if you have a motion to make.
Oh, I don't.
Oh, I don't. Mr. Berg, you don't have any motions on employee programs?
No.
Okay, so let's take a 5-minute break. And all right, are we all back? All right, so we're moving on to finance now, which,
Page 8.
thank you, page 8. Okay. I didn't have anything for finance myself. Any questions? Are we good? Finance?
Fine on finance.
Mr. Berg, you're fine on finance?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Mr. Lampy. Good?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Okay, you're fine. All right, now let's go on to elections then. It's at the bottom of page 8. And this is where we see the capital outlay, which is line 60. The request is for $21,500. These are for those election machines that we have to get this year. And it's my understanding that Jefferson County is paying half of the total amount. This leaves us with this remaining amount of $21,500. And then we have the indication there that it's been moved to Fund 5. And Fund 5, you can find it. And as I expressed earlier, I don't relish the idea of borrowing money to pay for that. I think that's something that we should be able to pay for out of our general fund. And so I'm just going to go ahead and make a motion that we move it out of Fund 5 and back into line 60 here, capital outlay in the amount of $21,500. So is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion
Sure.
purposes. If I'm understanding this right, the net effect of this is to take an expenditure from an account that is not part of the ERP consideration and move it into something that is?
True. True. As a reminder, we did just cut the IT tech person, so that would accommodate a transfer of funds. Also, if you've had a chance to take a look at Fund 5, it's quite large, the amount of requests. And I think we have our work cut out for us still with Fund 5. So that's my thought as to moving it back, not paying interest on this, buying them outright, which I think we should be able to do since our job is to run elections. We shouldn't have to borrow for that.
Alderperson Davis,
Oh, sorry.
one of the things that borrowing and going into a capital account is good for is items that have long-term benefit or long-term use. And this fits that criteria for borrowing and for making that type of an expenditure versus a Fund 1 type of an expenditure. If we're purchased and we have to buy them, and if they have a benefit and a use for anything over 10 years, then those are appropriate and typical for a borrowing type of purpose. And I think the mayor's approach on putting it into that category is the right one. Borrowing is obviously a thing we have to be careful of and only justify what's needed, but typically expenditures like this that have a longer term benefit are a perfect example of what you use for a capital expenditure. So I think the reason for it not having support is for the reasons I've stated.
Okay. And Mr. Lampy has some comments, but I'll just respond quickly.
I don't. I'm good.
Okay. My response to that is I completely agree with you that it is an appropriate use. But my strategy here is that right now in our capital projects fund, we're at, let's see, 6.3, whereas last year we were at 4.7. So we're going to need to cut some of those items that are in Fund 5. And while this is not a huge ticket item in comparison to many of the others, it's an item that I think we could move out and pay for, especially since we have removed the IT tech position. Mr. Smith.
The one thing that I am trying to keep an eye on is the cuts that we make in areas that are going to affect the ERP, because I want to keep the expenditures in those areas up to the max and still qualify. And one of the things in the back of my mind, obviously, this is something coming quite some 1 or 2 days. I think it's, can't remember. Tomorrow or then, or not tomorrow.
Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday or Thursday is the police captain, which is going to be an expenditure in the which would be an expense should it increase that would absorb cuts to offset my concern on ERP, is scheduled to begin on March 1st. And I'm hoping to be in a position to be able to make the case to start that position January 1st. So I'm not looking to move money into an ERP calculation, but to make enough room to have that as a possibility.
Okay. Well, we can go ahead and take a vote then on my motion. So I'll vote aye. Mr. Lampy?
No.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Mr. Berg?
No.
All right. So that motion does not pass. Okay. Are there any other items in elections? All right. I don't hear any, so let's move on to assessor. which is page 9, at the top of page 9. So, Mr. Stevens, give us an update on where we are with the contract and
Yep. So we're at the end of our contract with Accurate Assessors. We've created an RFP that's come back. We've done the evaluation of that. We received 3 quotes, and we are at the point of doing some questioning to the low bid. The low bid is considerably less than our current price, which is fantastic news. But I just want to verify that it's an accurate bid. It should be because of the source. But the second bid is also less than this 136. It was 125 and change, I think it was. And also, I feel comfortable that the 136 is actually going to be more than we need, and am asking for you to give me until hopefully Wednesday, I'll have answers back. But if we put this on the revisit account page,
Mhm.
I'm hoping that we should feel comfortable that we go down.
that sounds positive. And so you're keeping this list of revisit, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay, good. All right, anything else then for the assessor category?
Nothing for me, no.
From anybody else? All right, then let's move on to audit, which is accounting and audit is the next item down on page 9. Pretty straightforward there.
Yes.
If there are no questions on that, then we can move on. And we'll move on to property liability insurance. Do you have that page?
Mm, 14.
Page 14.
Our
Oh.
liability insurance is renewed on the 1st of January. Our property insurance is renewed July 1. So I'm very comfortable with the property insurance bid, because that's the price that I've got for the current year, for the first 6 months, if you will. And then I would have put in 2%, I believe, increase for the next 6 months after that.
Looks like workers' comp is having a good year. Maybe.
Workers' comp.
I shouldn't have said anything. Oh.
Yeah, our experience mod is decreasing, so that is helpful. Some of the increase, though, is because of some of the overall increase on wages, but not a super amount there. Yeah, we're trending better this year, and so I'm dropping the 312 to 301.
Okay. Any other questions there?
No.
All right, that then brings us to public service enterprises, which is page 30.
Alderperson Davis?
Yes, Mr. Berg.
Yeah, on that page 30, with regard to the Oak Hill Cemetery, I'm not happy with us lowering the amount, but I think I understood maybe through our mayor that they have a fund balance. Is there some way that they're gonna be able to cover this reduced contribution from the city to continue to operate that cemetery? I know we have an obligation to be helpful historically, and I know the value of doing that, because I've been a chairman of our St. Henry Cemetery for 7 years. I know the duties are there, and I'm just asking for reassurance or clarification on the reason for the reduction.
Do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, they have multiple accounts, Mr. Berg, that they'd be able to cover the difference for quite a while.
Are there any other questions from this area? Mr. Lampier?
I'm just wondering how Rock River Community Clinic got zeroed out in the initial requests.
They didn't apply.
But we're making up for that? Or they're good with this?
Actually, I'm looking at it thinking, oops, why is that $5,000 there? Now, the $5,000, that may be an area where you cut. Rock River didn't apply, Pave didn't apply. So that might be, that's a mistake for us to keep that 5,000 there.
All right, I'll move to drop that to 0 on 0157, 1156, but I do want to stick it in contingency.
Second.
Nice catch.
All right, so we got a first and a second. Any further discussion? And again, Mr. Lampe, if you didn't catch it, he wants to put that into contingency.
Which is 0151, 8156.
All right, let's take a vote then. Mr. Lampe,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Berg,
Aye.
and then I'll vote aye.
I didn't catch the second on that.
It was Mr. Smith, I believe. Okay.
All right, let me ask Alderperson Davis, in regard to our mayor's budget, though that I didn't get a chance to ask at the time, but the Crossroads program has been active in Watertown for a long time, and they had a request for 10,000. It shows a 0, and I didn't ask earlier, but I'm asking, I guess now, the reality is that with rents going out of whack and skyrocketing for a lot of tenants and their inability to pay, Crossroads is providing a very valuable service for a lot of tenants that are struggling to make rent payment and to stay from being evicted from their rental housing. So I'm asking if we've just, at least in theory, found an area where we don't need to spend the 5. Is there a rationale for? From my view, there is, but maybe if the mayor can explain why we went to 0.
The funds this year have not been plentiful, Mr. Berg, so I've been looking for ways to cut, and this was a brand new account they had never asked before, so I just decided not to allow any new requests. So this one's a brand new one.
All right, is there any action that anyone wants to take, or are we good with the amounts that the mayor's designated with the one correction? Yes, Mr. Lampe?
If Crossroads did have a completed application, I might be interested in revisiting that one. I just don't think we're doing 10,000.
It would be in the SharePoint file.
You mind if I put that on the revisit list?
Yep. So we're putting that on the revisit list.
Got it.
Sounds good. Any other comments on this particular section? All right, hearing none, we can move on to letter I, which is budget proposal discussion, other funds, transit, Fund 13, tourism, Fund 22, non-recurring grants, Fund 24, fiber optic, Fund 25, CDB, housing, Fund 65, economic development, Fund 60, and then the TIDs, 8, 9, 10, 19, 23, and 30. So let's start with transit, Fund 13.
Page 73.
Yep, Mr. Limpy.
The main thing that struck me as I was looking at these things is we have about a 27% increase on purchase transportation across 2 years, from about 880 to $1.12 million. So there's some interest on my part in understanding how competitive we can get with this, or maybe doing like an RFP type process where we're bringing in a third party to tell us if this is what we should be paying. Because at this point, the cost for automobiles and gasoline is not going up by double digits per year. So I'm a little bit worried about this cost increase and where that's going to take us. I don't know what to do about it this year, but I would be very interested in some third-party analysis of this cost.
Yep, Mr. Smith.
I'm not sure what I can say based on what I think is a standard of confidentiality during an evaluation period, but RFPs are out. The process of evaluation is underway. We have another meeting by the evaluation committee. But I did want to address this, and I can certainly talk in a general way about under the RFP, we have requested an amount of hours that would be very likely to be met. Whoever is selected, I'm trying to think about the best way to say this. Whoever is selected is not selected with a locked-in commitment to the RFP numbers. The contract will then be negotiated, and regardless what the contract is negotiated to be, it is permissible to adjust hours during the course of the year. That's a little bit of the background about why I feel that we can make even more cuts here. And I will tell you that this notion of the local share is something that has always been a fail-safe for making our shared ride cab system financially balanced. But I can also tell you that for the vast majority of years that we have run the shared ride cab system, we have had no local share. It's always been a potential, but it has always been the goal of making it self-sustaining, such that the taxpayers did not subsidize the shared ride system. Undoubtedly, over the course of time, the grants, which last time I was involved prior to this tenure on the Transit Commission, the amounts were about 2/3 of the cost. We had to raise about 1/3 through the fares. If we cut and we already are anticipating a substantial cut in this local share. And if you look at the numbers, they're very deceptive, because if you go back to the actual city share for 24, the reason why that was 45,000 is because we basically used all the fund balance that year. And then, the real, amount of the local share that year was, and Mark, you probably have the exact numbers handy, but was about the 93 that became the city's share in 2025. But if you look, we are anticipating a massive increase in what was an accurate local share for 2025. We budgeted 93, we're anticipating 93, and now we're looking at an original request of 142. And the mayor substantially cut that back to 75. Now, I think it would be good for us to move in the direction of phasing out that local share. I think it would be unreasonable to try to do that all in 1 year. But I do believe it would be possible. I mean, I don't want to get into all of the specifics, but through substantial periods of time, and we can adjust not only the number of hours that we're running, but also the number of cabs that we have out during those particular hours. Now, it is a more complicated thing if we wanted to try to drop a day. And I think that it certainly would be worth taking a look at the issue of one day, Sunday, which is extremely low use, already low hours and low cab service. But I'm fairly convinced that by simply adjusting that, we would not have to markedly, and hopefully not at all, address the fees being charged for the different types of fares that are being taken. Because if you try to make up this local share through increasing fares, it's going to end up to come back and really not benefit you much, because the more you charge, the more the ridership drops, and you end up in just about as bad a position as you were. But I do believe that there is a very good chance that by addressing the issue of hours and cabs out at any given time, that we can cut more deeply into this local share. And I'll be perfectly honest, I think that it is something we should be at least striving for, to eliminate that local share. So what am I saying? I'm saying that right now we're budgeting $75,000 for our local share. I think that we can cut that more. And then it becomes the obligation. Well, first of all, there is absolutely no way of us factoring into our calculation at this point in time what the contract is that's going to be entered into. And I don't want to say anything more about the contract issue, but adjusting once we have the contract in place is something that, if it were a worst case scenario, is the way that that local share could be met, and that it would be the obligation of the Transit Commission to make that in the most painless way possible. And as I mean, anytime you cut a subsidy, there's going to be somebody that's going to be unhappy. Anyway, that's the spiel. I think we can cut it more.
Thank you for that. I was going to share, I have a dream that we let Uber and Lyft and somehow come up with a way to have a voucher system with local rideshare companies. That's my dream. Okay, Mr. Lampe.
So I appreciate the explanation of the revenue numbers, and I'm definitely willing to take direction from folks who've spent more time looking at that than I have. My continuing concern is the purchased transportation piece, which appears to be budgeted for 993 this year, and we're estimating this to hit that 1.12, which, if you look at the subsidization picture here, if we committed this year for 93 of local share, we're essentially looking at a deficit of 103, which would drive the fund balance into a negative 23,000 this year. So are those numbers that we're standing by is the 1.21, and is that where we think the picture is going to go in this upcoming year?
I would have extrapolated the year-to-date at the time that I did this, which probably was 1 or 2 bill cycles behind. And also, I can update that review. I haven't updated it probably, well, definitely not in the newest month because I just got the bill.
So the 1.12 is looking good based on the extrapolated figures at the time.
At the time, yep.
But this looks like an unsustainable picture because we're starting with a negative fund balance and driving it $70,000 further down. Like what is the actual viable solution here?
Well, the way that we would end up addressing this local share is by diminishing the purchase transportation. In other words, the sum total that gives us that number is the accumulated cost of X number of cabs at the contract rate out for X number of vehicles, and you get this. And basically, this is a status quo number. My view is that we need to make cuts in the purchase transportation by adjusting scheduling, and worst case scenario, to a marginal degree, addressing fares and closing that gap, which is the local share that we're left with.
But aren't we at that point right now if we're driving into deficit?
We are, and there should have been an effort to deal more responsibly, in my opinion, with the broader financial picture for that cab system, addressing what was an unsustainable loss and doing it in a way where we did not basically gobble up a long-standing increase of a fund balance that was basically wiped out in 1 year. That is not a good financial approach.
So should we expect this budget to come back to us at some point with modifications after we've taken a look at how to reduce purchase transportation? So, or is that something that doesn't need to happen, but it just needs to be fixed?
Yeah,
Maybe it
don't
doesn't have to come
envision
back
that
to
it
us.
would ever come back. What will come back to the council is anything that the DOT requires council approval on.
Okay.
And what will be the initial council involvement will be for the approval of whatever that the Transit Commission recommends as the new provider. And then there will be a contract that will be negotiated, and then we will have to begin to address what is a built-in deficit.
Mhm.
Well, I think the time to hit that deficit though is right now. And so I think what you just told me is that there's a great deal of variable cost in this purchase transportation that is somewhat discretionary. If we look at what's currently proposed under the mayor's 2026 budget here, we have an additional $67,000 that's added to the bottom line of the fund balance, which essentially drives this thing all the way down to $90,000 underneath balanced. So if I look at what that takes to bring that back down back up to zero, I mean, what does it look like if we essentially say that there's a cap on purchase transportation that zeroes out that for this year and goes and gets that $23,000 we're predicting for, we're gonna be in the hole for 2025. So if I add those numbers back in, I guess what I would ask is possible, can we take $90,000 off the purchase transportation and roll forward with that budget so we get back to a zero budget, at least, or zero at the fund balance coming out of 2026?
Well, right now, that $67,000 deficit is based on a city subsidy of $75,000, which is what I'm interested in trying to at least raise as an issue to increase what would be the deficit if that purchase transportation remained the same, which is, from my perspective, the way that we begin to try to address that deficit.
I see what you're saying. You're saying this is the new way forward is you're only going to get this from now on. So what are you going to do about it? What solutions? Is that?
Yes.
So does the cab revenue, does this represent zero increase, or does this anticipate some degree of increase with some loss of ridership?
It's very possible that, I mean, I would even say it would be very likely that we will have a loss of ridership if we cut the cabs on the road and we cut the hours of operation. There are going to be people currently being served who are going to say, you are not serving me, and they will no longer be fares. On the flip side is the issue of addressing the deficit by increasing the costs that individuals that do ride pay. And whatever that is surely going to have a negative effect upon ridership. And so I think what's going to have to happen is it's going to have to be incrementally implemented. And I think that the way that we would begin that would be with the hours and the number of cabs out at any given time. Not with the, I think the last case scenario is dropping a day. The secondary approach would be to look at fares. And the first approach would be to markedly address the amount of transportation that we pay for by addressing the scheduling.
So, Mr. Smith, are you comfortable with how this budget appears even with the $67,000 deficit? You see this as a tool for
Now we
making
have to close
investment.
that $67,000 deficit. Perhaps it would be well to not make any more than marginal changes, and maybe not any changes at all in the subsidy. But I think what I'm saying is this is going to have to be a test case year if we're already looking to close an almost $68,000 deficit, because we are not going to put in more than $75,000 as the city share. If we are successful at this, I envision future years basically at least being in a position that where we look at additional reductions of the city share. But anyway, for this year, not knowing exactly how this is going to go, we have our work cut out for us. And I think we can do that successfully. And I'm just trying to say all of this so that you would know that, at least from my position, we are on a road to continue reducing the city's share with a goal of eliminating it. And I love the idea of privatizing some aspects of this, which would enhance the likelihood of being able to do this.
Yep.
So I'm still very concerned about that deficit that we've built into this. And the place I would like to know if there's interest or ability is really knocking about 90,000 off that purchase transportation, which would get us back to a zero fund balance at the end of 2026.
I think that's exactly what we should do, because that means that we have put the council stamp of approval on the necessity for the Transit Commission to address this, the deficit, and we have given them their marching orders as to how to do it.
All right, let's make a motion.
I will make that motion then to reduce 1357,1146 by $90,000.
90,000?
90,000, which would conceivably change the,
Wipe out the deficit in the fund balance and
Or 25?
also the structural deficit in the budget. I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion?
Yes, I need to make sure you're aware, the state mass transit and federal mass transit are variables. The revenue that we get from those two government bodies are an exact percentage of the purchase transportation expenses. So as you reduce your purchase transportation expenses, you will also reduce what the federal and state portions are.
that would have been handy to have a couple minutes ago.
Try not to interrupt your conversation.
I welcome you to interrupt our conversation when we're off on the misinformed track.
They were in the red for 24, 25. So we operate in the red here as far as the budgets go.
24, as Fred mentioned, was intentionally to draw down a fund balance that
Okay.
was higher.
Okay,
And also that one was intentional.
on purpose.
So do you have the reverse calculation as to what a $90,000 impact would have to those revenue funds?
Megan is online. I'm trying to remember what the percentages are. One's 23 and one's 32, but maybe those are the old numbers.
Do we want to revisit this one?
56.5, she's saying, is the total between state and fed is 56.5%.
Yeah, so
So how do you want to go forward? We do have a motion in a second, don't we?
I'm gonna stick with that motion and come back to this later. I think this is probably what I would add to that, if you don't mind a friendly amendment to this, would be, and I'd like to see the recalculations based on the applicable transit aids and get a fresh copy of this and see how far we're off. So we'll recalibrate, see if we
Okay.
want more.
That sounds good.
So just to make sure I heard 90,000.
90,000 off the purchase transportation.
Got it.
And then also recalculate the revenue, the applicable revenue lines based on that, and then give us a fresh
Yep.
cut and see where we are in the finance column. Which is literally what that's for.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm good with that. Any other discussion?
No, I think that's the way to go.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, so that passes unanimously. All right, let's see how that works out. Let's move on to tourism, which is Fund 22.
Page 86.
I don't have any questions myself.
I would just point out that the Tourism Commission itself also has some grant writing ability. So I remember back when we were re-indexing things pre-room tax, the old budget levels of about $80,000 were getting pretty close to basically covering salary benefits. And there was very little granting opportunity. This essentially has put grant writing back in as a major, if not majority, portion of what tourism does at this point.
How many employees does the Tourism Commission have?
One.
So the 122,500 is for one person
Yes, and that's generally split between salary
and
and
benefits?
grant writing.
Oh. Can you say that again?
So the grant writing part got pretty thin during COVID.
Okay.
And we essentially learned what it was to essentially sustain a person, with the grant writing pieces largely coming for specific marketing pieces. From what I understand from the Tourism Commission, and they have a full budget that breaks this out more, the grant writing piece of tourism has been restored. So people can now more reliably apply to tourism and get funded for a grant for this, a grant for that. And that's part of what they have been encouraging for things like a out-of-town softball tournament coming into town.
Oh,
So they
sure.
will often
Oh, sure.
incentivize those.
I'm with you. Okay.
But these other allocations here are for specific events. These kind
Okay.
of come out of the city's.
So
budget.
it's salary plus grants are in that 122.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm with you now on the grants. I understand. Yes.
What I would like to ask, is there anything, obviously, we're tied to the established revenues, and we're not subsidizing this budget from the anticipated income from the room tax.
It's
Now-
100% lodging tax. That's all it is.
Yes, and we also have not only a substantial fund balance, but we have an anticipated annual excess of $10,000.
That's why I felt it was comfortable moving the Historical Society over here.
Yep, and what I'm wondering is this: is there any, just hypothetically, but if down the road, rather than, let's say we decide that we're gonna move forward with a contract that would result in an increase for the Main Street program, is there anything about using tourism funds to do some additional funding for the Main Street program? I mean, we're doing substantially that with the chamber, it seems to me. And I'm just saying, if the bottom line ends up, regardless how we get there, that we want to have 35,000 a year or 40,000, to add that to the tourism budget, fund that increase through the tourism budget. That would be
Alderperson
permissible.
Davis?
Yes, Mr. Berg.
Yeah, I like everything that Alderperson Smith is pointing out right now in that example. I think there's a direct correlation between the tourism and the objectives of that program and funding a potential increase in support for the Main Street program. The two are very directly related, and the ability of us to give an increase to the Main Street program, which I feel is needed, can very justifiably come out of that tourism dollars. And whether it comes out of that fund balance or some adjustment otherwise in the dollars allocated, I think he's hit it on the head, and I think it's the right approach to addressing a need while without aggravating our budgeted dollars. So I appreciate that view.
Can I ask a question? Would it be appropriate to, in some ways, have designated funds? So it's Main Street program, but designated to a certain cause, whether it's their rehab grants or something specific. I don't know if that would be appropriate, so that we would know that it wouldn't be go into their general fund to pay for salary and expenses.
It's something that you could do. For example, if you look at with the Fourth of July parade or the holiday parade, you may find that there's some commonalities of organization underneath there.
Hmm.
So I think what you're describing is okay. I just want to be careful that we're not putting economic development stuff in the tourism budget necessarily. I would be
Oh.
in favor of event
Okay.
driven things, which the Main Street program has that mission as well.
And if it is labeled that way, it should be dispersed in that way so that the nonprofit receives it as a designated fund. Tor- Is that true?
I would love to see that in a
would-
memorandum of understanding. from
I
us,
would love to
but-
see that too, where, okay, you got a base amount and then any additional is designated somehow. So they cannot go to general fund operations.
Keep coming back to this Main Street contract. I want to see a fresh copy of.
I do want to see a fresh
Yeah.
copy of that.
Well, I know that we want to look at a number of things, which makes it probably inappropriate, certainly premature to modify this
Right.
at this point. But this is just one more option that I see as an additional option other than if additional funding is necessary, the contingent account.
Okay. All right, is there any other discussion on this then?
Back to the Tourism Commission, that 122 number, I thought about something that perhaps would be of help. There is an annual report that I have to submit to the state that gives the delineation of how that money is spent. The information is given to me from the Tourism Commission, and I just use their numbers and fill in the blanks. But we do have to, we're required to present to the state what we're actually spending the money on. And that's something that I could provide to you all, what last year's report was. So you would see exactly what the grants were that that money was allocated to.
Okay, Mr. Berg says that he has the pop out. So thank you, Mr. Berg.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on tourism? Let's move on to Fund 24, which is non-recurring funds. So, Mr. Stevens, I stared at this and stared at it, and I'm sure the answer is simple, but I don't understand the difference between 58 and 59, or I'm sorry, not 58, 88 and 89 as to what I'm looking at. Like revenue,
Page 88 is the money coming in, page 89 is the money going out.
well, okay. You did make it much more simple, but I guess. So the revenues and expenses.
Anytime you see an account that has in the third digit of 4, those are income accounts. And any third digit that's a 5 is an expense account. What's confusing perhaps on this is you've got accounts that have the same names to them, and one's the money in and one's the money going out.
Yep, and I think I'm looking at the revenues, like police grant. I was seeing the matchup on the reserve accounts in the correlation there,
Mhm.
but I wasn't seeing the same correlation for the revenues versus expenses. So you got your police grant as a revenue as the first one.
Yep, so
Oh, I
I've
see it as
attempted
numbered.
to do that by putting in the actual description name, the account number.
Okay,
These are all riffraffs, if you will, that came originally from Fund 1. And so I just tried to keep the same account numbers, but I don't like the fact that you're right on. They're not the same.
yeah,
So that's where I've put it in the description name.
I do see that now. Thank you. Okay, clear. I understand.
Along the lines with the reserves account, one of the ones that I've noticed here is that we moved over the urban forestry grant. Is that something that has to end up as a reserve account as well, or is that being carried elsewhere?
The reality on this entire fund is that I keep track of the fund balances. Why they were called reserve funds and only certain accounts were that way. It's like all of these. I look at this Fund 24, the balances never disappear. It's just the net is something that I carry forward from one year to the next. So call the whole page reserve accounts as far as I'm concerned. And all is just, I tried to use the account numbering system that I was given when I got here and all, but I look at it and say, you're right on. They're all reserves. Everything on the page. And we keep track of it in that same fashion once it's over here. Back to where urban forest grant is general fund, and that didn't have a carry forward balance. It's whatever got spent out of that grant and the difference disappeared. So the positive in moving it here is that you keep that balance carried forward from one year to the next if there's something that's left over.
So practically speaking, if a department wants to use, they just make the request from you and or purchase rec or whatever, they put the account number in, make sure they have enough money.
Yes. Yep. The departments that own these accounts have access to them.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on non-recurring grants? If not, we will move on to fiber optic, which I had such high hopes in and feels like it's stalled out around here. Any questions there?
Do we have a queue of future projects that could potentially draw from this?
There's nothing that's on the docket, and I would say probably because of transition of IT coordination, it would have been the prior mayor that kind of put the ideas forward on getting these that you see listed still in the 24-25 year. Part of, I would say the hesitancy is that we have no source of funds coming into this.
Right.
And we've got the ongoing expenses of locates that will always happen into the future. So we're going to spend another $3,000 or so every year. And so in 10 years or so, you're out of money and general fund then gets to pick up the tab.
Okay, any other questions on fiber optic? All right, then we're going on to
I-
Fund 6. Oh, go ahead.
I don't have a question, just have a comment and a seed to
Sure,
plant for
go
this.
for it.
Because having led the other part of this partnership, and having been at the beginning of this initiation, the long-term vision for this was effectively another utility where we would be adding customers, primarily business customers, because the fiber optic system we've put in place has a tremendous amount of capacity available, well beyond what the school district and the city are using. So there is revenue to be had here. We need to look at it the way it was originally intended.
Okay.
Along those lines, is there an easily understood map of accessibility or access to this system?
The mapping of where this network is something that we have, yes. We
I believe
needed
it's actually
that
a
to
layer in the
add to it.
GIS.
Oh, okay, yeah, if it's that easy. I'm gonna go check that out.
Okay, let's move on then to Fund 65.
We have this administered by an outside company called MSA. There's not any, I mean, this is leftover money from a federal grant of years ago.
Oh, there's a lot of money in there.
Yeah, the majority of the money that's there is loans. So until a person sells their house and it's part of their closing that this fund is reimbursed, we don't have money to provide to others that are looking for help on rehab.
So it's allocated.
Yeah, most of it is sitting in loans.
Okay. Anything else on this one? Okay. That brings us to Fund 60, which is Economic Development.
Page 96.
And I guess one thing I noticed is that the city contribution from general fund is 39,000. Salary is more than that though, so there's a use of fund balance to pay for the salary of that individual. And can you remind us how many hours you've told her she's working? For your economic development person, how many hours are they working? We're on page 96.
It was to be 10 to 20, probably starting off closer to 20, but as I mentioned last week, the money allocated was if we wanted to increase that. So I was planning to go to finance, if it was going to be something significant, and so money was set aside if we wanted to increase that to 30 or so a week.
Okay.
So it would not come out of that fund unless we were going to increase it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things that I'm hesitant to unchain ourselves from is the direct contribution from Fund 1 for the salary and benefits of the person that's employed at doing this and their actual cost. I remember last year, I explicitly rechained that. There was like an extra $4,000 missing from my point of view, to true up the cost. So if we want to go with a higher number of salaries, I actually would request that we follow that up with a Fund 1 allocation to match that.
You want to test the water? I'd like to keep it the way it is.
Well, I'd want to add up the numbers. Do we have what is our allocation? 39, which does equal, I'm sorry, Mark, can I borrow some calculations here?
Sure.
Does that 39,335 equal what was requested for the 36, 265 and the 530?
And the 2265. So it should be the 36 plus the 226, the three blue numbers that you see.
Right. And we have a request here that includes that plus a $4,000 payout into the retirement system. Was that negotiated with the current applicant?
Actually, we learned from the current applicant that she's already going to be eligible for WRS. She's grandfathered into WRS from her prior service. You only have to work a total of 600 hours. Then the new total, if it's me, for instance, I have to work 1,200 hours in order to be enrolled in WRS. But because she was a former government employee somewhere, she's grandfathered at the 600. So the numbers that I had are probably going to be the numbers in requested column didn't include WRS, if you see that on line 33. And so my number was inaccurate, but I let it go because of adding the extra time. This assumes a total of about 1,500 hours for the work in the course of the year, 3/4 time.
And unfortunately, we're at the point that I was a little afraid of because it sounds like we're paying for 3/4 of a full-time employee, getting less than half a full-time employee.
Getting
We have,
less than
we have
half.
most of the costs, but we don't have a proportional amount of the work.
I'm not sure I followed the less than the half and all.
If you take the 54, you add in the WRS, you add in Medicare, you add in Social Security, I think you're somewhere in the neighborhood of about $62,000 a year.
Sure.
If we look at the previous amount there, we had like 89,000 a year. So,
Yeah.
Difference was that Mason did not have insurance. So if you were to replace that with someone as a family plan, you have to add almost $30,000 to that.
okay, so
So
that.
that 89,000 would be showing like 125,000, or sorry, 110,000 or so, 115,000. Mason was not under insurance. He didn't take it.
Yeah, but that doesn't enter into the current equation either. I mean, if we're only hiring a 3/4 time person, they're not on insurance either. And also neither column actually is considering insurance.
I just have a hard time decoupling these two. So I was happier when the actual cost was closer to 39 across the board. It seems like,
Sounds like a motion.
well, yeah, I don't know exactly how to frame this up because of that extra WRS piece in here, which appears to be variable. But really, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if we kept the salaries, the Social Security and the Medicare indexed back down to the level that was originally requested, with WRS coming along for the ride.
Okay, with, so you're wanting the salary to just go down to 39,335.
Yes, yeah, it's, if the options are get down to what we're giving from Fund 1 or
Increase.
try to make up from that fund balance that I'd like to spend some other way, I would prefer to see that salary come down again. I don't want to blow out this fund.
Okay, make a motion.
All right, I will move to return salaries, Social Security, and Medicare to the amounts listed in the 2026 requested column, with an additional allocation for WRS to be calculated.
I'll second that.
2631 is that WRS amount. Because that's a variable, it'll be 7.2% next year.
So basically, we're doing the requested 2026 amount plus WRS.
Yes.
Yep. So any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Mr. Smith? You have questions or?
No, I'll say aye.
Okay. So that passes. I think Mr. Berger's gone. He's still up on the screen. Mr. Berger, are you there? Okay, so that passes then. Okay, anything else for economic development? All right, we're on the homeward stretch. We're in the TIDS. We're gonna start with Fund 8 then. Let's see.
Page 64.
Any thoughts about this? Page 64.
This one has nothing because this is the one that's closing.
Oh.
So there's nothing
Easy.
for you to do. It's just listed there because of the activity of the current year.
Okay.
But don't expect anything out of that one.
Okay, so let's go on then to Fund 9.
Fund 9, which is TID 5. Pretty straightforward.
Yep. Any questions about that?
So we're doing TID 9 now, is that
Yeah,
it?
well, it's
Well,
fund
it's Fund 9, which is TID 5.
66, page 66.
Confusing.
Yeah, Fund 9.
I did notice the administration cost and this one went up a little bit.
We have incorporated AMSO to impact all of the TIDs.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's where the admin fees have increased.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, you let me know when you're ready. Are there any questions about this one? All right. If there are no questions, let's move on to the next one, which is TID 10, which is page 68. Anything?
Fund 10, TID 6.
Oh, thank you. I said that backwards.
No problem.
Fund 10.
And
TID
this
6,
is-
page 68. I had the right page number.
Yeah.
Anything we should know here as far as updates?
No, this is just Riverview Assisted Living. That's all that this TID is.
Okay. All right. Any questions about this one?
So it looks like this one's gonna run out of fund balance in 2 years. And have to be bailed out. I'll say bailed out again, because it's been bailed out several times.
The potential saving part on that is that we've got just 2 years left on loan. And then that's paid off.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay, then we'll move on to, if there aren't any, I don't want to rush you. We'll move on to Fund 19, which is TID 7, which is on page 83. 83. If that looks good to everybody, then we can move on to Fund 23. Oops, yep. Page 87. And then we have one last one then. Which is number 30, Fund 30. TID 9.
This one is a complete guess since it's brand new.
Right,
I had nothing, no basis to add any.
right. All right, any questions about that one? Not, then, oh boy. Letter J, 2026 budget proposal discussion. Follow up on prior budget meeting. It is 5 minutes to 9. How should we tackle this? I assume this was to talk about the capital projects?
Yes, I wanted to, I guess my suggestion to you is I wanted to at least look at the big picture
I think we should.
of what the total revenues are, what the anticipated expenses are. And then I've got a handout to give to you for the Baird hypothetical financing options.
Drive careful.
So looking at page 58. Actually, I'm going to suggest we start at the bottom because 58 is understood better by looking at 62. So page 62, the bottom of the mayor's column is listed $6.3 million. Included in Fund 5 is the purchase of a shared ride taxi. And the revenue is there as well as the expense. The revenue is 80% of the cost of the vehicle. But we typically take that out and interest earnings in Fund 5 pays for the difference of that tab is what precedent was explained to me before when I got here. So the 6.3 million, I'm dropping to 6.197 in the second row. And then let's go to the third row because those first two include carryover amounts, which we don't have to fund. So we're down to $5.947 million. I'm looking at page 62. Bottom line, $5.9 million. That then is therefore why on page 58, the request is a total of $5.9 million of borrowing. Okay?
Okay.
Does that follow and understand where we're going on that?
No, thank you.
So what we have in front of us are 4 different scenarios of borrowing certain sums of money. The first, as I've circled, is $4.5 million. And then just to quickly pass through the next couple of pages, the next one would be 5 million. If you look at the square box, that's where your number is going to be. Third page is 5.25 million. And then fourth page is 5.5 million. Okay. And so here's 4 different scenarios of how much money you would want to borrow. My assumption was no more than 5.5 million. That's my hint. And that's why I only have models through $5.5 million, that surely we should be able to do something to reduce the 5.9 million to a 5.5 million maximum. Now, I'll start by saying that our ability to borrow is greater than any of these. Okay, so we do have borrowing capabilities, but just like the impact on our debt levy is an increase in the current year to a $6.1 million. When we say yes to whatever we borrow, we're saying we're willing to spend then over the next 8 years payback. And that's how the influence of the decision of how much you borrow today has a 8-year impact into the future as to how much that is borrowing. The key column, if you will, might be the one almost 2/3 of the way on the right side of the sheet, and that's the combined debt mill rate. And so, and I hand wrote on the first page the 2.48 because between me and Baird, we had to correct a $240,000 differential. And so he had included it on his others, the other models. I went back and included it on the first model. So please forgive the handwriting. I didn't get a revised copy from Baird. But the 2026, I said this the other day, I just want to repeat myself. We're actually on a high year in 26 because of a late borrowing of the fire station and the 25. So because we borrowed in the second half of the year, which is not common for us, we have a higher interest rate, higher interest to pay in the beginning of 26 than is a common schedule. And so that schedule, I brought it just in case somebody wanted to know. The debt service for June of 26 for what we borrowed this year, which is fire station plus a regular year's worth of borrowing. The debt service is in June of 26, 1.57. In June of 27, it drops to 1.24. Okay, so it just so happens that this next year coming is a higher year for the interest on what we borrowed in the current year 25. So with that said, you can see now that you look at that column, combined debt mill rate, the 2.48 is in my handwriting, and it will drop to 2.39 and then 2.4, 2.46, so it gradually increases. But next year will be less in our debt levy than it is in, or I should say in 27, it will be less than it is in 26. Now, some assumptions here that I want to make sure you understand that are on the second, third, and fourth pages. And the revisions that I've done with Baird includes a larger borrowing in 28 to pay for the ladder truck that has been approved for purchase. And that one, again, when we first did the 4.5 on the first sheet, I hadn't included that number to Baird and all. So the first sheet assumes borrowing on an annual basis of $4.5 million. The sheets 2, 3, and 4, and I'm reading the notes down below. So I'm not making this stuff up, so you can, go back and rehash it if you want to. But the note C assumes future borrowing of 4.5 in 27, then 7 million in 28, and then back to 4.5 in the years after 28. That's to make room for the ladder truck, $2.5 million. Okay. So the schedule, if you look at the first big column of numbers, existing debt service is the entirety of our current debt. So you understand what that $50 million is the entirety of our current debt. Then you've got the box that represents the options for the year 26 borrowing. And then you've got a future CIP borrowings that takes into consideration the future borrowing as well. So that column is not just the first column plus 26. but it takes into consideration the schedule that we've got down below that is $4.5 million every year into the future and $7 million on the 1 year in 28. So underscored in the overall taxpayer impact general fund, you can see underscored is the high of the schedule that then goes down. And what it's trying to do is level off. You can see where the leveling around 2037, the leveling becomes about a $6 million, 6.5 million dollars each of those schedules. So we've got assumptions as well down below on the E note about some of the growth in housing. So that's included in some of these calculations as well, that as assessed values / equalized values go up, then you're spreading the cost over more of that assessed value, and that's what helps with the debt mill rate.
Very helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. Two additional lines that I just want to bring to your attention. Well, I'll start with 3 and then we could quit. On page 59, municipal building, I am still anxiously waiting. I was supposed to have it last week. Haven't got it yet. Supposed to have it for Wednesday so that you can kind of see a concept of what City Hall looks like. That 377 number is literally Mark's plug number for $1 million. Okay. I would believe that the boiler will need to be replaced. We need to be thinking about that this next year. Nothing else is a have to. It's just as we looked at the tasks, the outside parking lot is a standalone. So regardless of what we do on the inside of the building, that has a huge impact on public safety use of the facility because it makes a dedicated drive out for the police cars. So that's its value, not the parking lot as much as the curbs that lead to an easy exit so that they don't have to wonder about cross traffic in the parking lot. Okay. So we've listed it that. Streets Department is considering that we should probably be able to do that with an in-house crew, similar to what the South First Street parking lot was like, and hire out the pavement, but do the rest of the work in-house. So that might be able to save a little bit of money. But then 2 other numbers that are adds from the mayor's perspective that I just want to bring to your attention on page 60. Through his investigations with various departments and what he has seen, putting words in his mouth here, the park storage of $400,000, kind of almost at the bottom of page 60's list in blue. And then on page 61, again, somewhat at the bottom of the page in blue, because of the number of comments that have been tossed into conversations over the last number of months, the feeling of adding an additional $500,000 towards street repairs of some sort, whether it's mill and overlay or whatnot, adding that $500,000 to what the department has scheduled out for you, and Andrew can go through when we get to that part of our budget review.
This is information I needed, so thank you very much.
Could I just make a brief comment on the debt schedule?
Yes, go ahead.
So I appreciate those estimates of the forthcoming years, and I realize and you're plugging in the number about the fire engine. I would also just like to mention that we are going to see substantial costs for the Main Street reconstruction. That will likely also hit at about that time. And I just want to begin to prepare people for that. It is substantial.
So conversation about these loan schedules could also be revisited Thursday. Would that be appropriate during the capital projects budget?
Oh, yes, for sure.
So I think Mr. Stevens has given us considerable amount of information to read over and study. And then we've also got those capital project proposals to look at. My recommendation would be to mull it all over, maybe call it quits for tonight, but I'm interested in your input. If you guys want to keep talking or if you are willing to just think about it and revisit it. Mr. Lampy.
I do want to echo Alder Arnett's comments in terms of some of the future implications here. I know we have really only committed to the ladder truck at this point, but we also have, as he inferred, we have major Main Street expenses in 2028. And frankly, I'm still curious about the big plug that we have sitting in 2027, which is City Hall renovations for a large amount, if that's something that we still think is something we should account for. So we do have some of these larger, and from my perspective, potentially larger, almost 20-year borrowing opportunities that are on the doorstep that may actually affect this more than the ladder truck. So I just wanted to echo Arnett's comments on that, and I tend to think that there's more debt opportunities out there than we're currently seeing.
Thank you. Mr. Smith? Nothing? All right, well, if there are no other comments for letter J, then that moves us to item 5, adjournment. I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
I'd move to adjourn.
All right, Mr. Lampy, Mr. Smith. Barring any discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. We did it.